So, what I love to do when I have to talk about climate change, the science or its impacts, is always start off with a visioning exercise. And all of you all writers, aspiring writers, professional writers, I'm sure you all know how to use your mind's eye. So to start off, I want to invite all of you to imagine. I want you to imagine yourselves sleeping at home in your room with your door slightly ajar in your bed, uncovered by anything. And while you lay there, someone that you know, someone that loves you, whether it's a mom or a dad, a brother, they walk by, they look inside, and they see you lying there uncovered. So, with good intention, they come inside the room and they cover you with a very thin sheet, a very thin blanket, and they go on their way. 1 minute later, someone else comes by, they see you inside, and out of that abundance of care that they have for you, they decide to add another blanket. And this repeats itself over and over again, right? Minute after minute for 70 minutes until you are covered with 70 thin blankets. So I want you to picture yourself there in bed with covered with all of these sheets. And I want to ask you, what's happening to you right now? And please feel free to talk in the chat, unmute and shout out some answers. What do you think is happening to you in that moment?
Getting warmer, sweating.
Great, warmer, sweating. All right, good. And as you get warmer, as you start to get a sweat, what do you do? Like, what is your natural reaction to this? What are you gonna do?
Basically, kick it off.
Right, you can kick off some blankets. What else could you do?
Latoya says she's getting frustrated.
Yeah, certainly feeling frustrated. Anything else? What else are you gonna do if you're feeling hot and sweating?
Gonna turn on the fan.
Yeah, great. You can turn on the fan or turn on the air conditioner. And what do you think would happen to your body if you didn't turn on the fan or remove those sheets?
Overheat.
You overheat perfectly. All right, great. So thank you all for those responses. The reason I always start off my conversations with this visioning exercise is because I find it to be a very good metaphor for what is happening to our planet. You see, for the past 70 years, our activities that we have done to advance civilization, to remove poverty, everything that we've done based around fossil fuel energy, the burning of fossil fuels, has put out into the atmosphere thin blankets of gas, right? And there are different types of gases that we call greenhouse gases. The most common and abundant one is carbon dioxide. And as these blankets cover the earth, it causes the planets to overheat, just as you would be under those sheets, right? The blanket of gases around the earth traps that heat and causes the planet to heat up. And just like you would sweat, the planet also sweats, right? In response to that overheating, when the planet sweats, it manifests itself in different ways, from extreme events such as hurricanes, to droughts, to shifts in climate variability, where we have extreme precipitation that results in floods. And the hotter the planet gets, the more frequent and extreme these events happen. And just like your body, you don't sweat uniformly. There will be parts of your body that sweat more than others. Under your arms, for example, might sweat more than other parts of you. It's the same thing. Even though the entire planet is warming up, the effects are not equally distributed. In fact, we know that it is small island developing states like our countries here in the Caribbean and lower income countries that are disproportionately impacted by these effects, right? We also know that as your body heats up, and if you leave it unchecked, that you may be faced with different types of damages, so too are the planets getting to a certain temperature point. So for example, with the human body, we can't really have our body temperature sustain beyond, I would say maybe like 35 degrees Celsius for long periods of time, there is a number for the planets as well. And especially and that number that we have scientifically determined is 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to a pre-industrial baseline, which means that it's not, if the temperature changes too much outside of what it used to be before we invented all these machines and burning fossil fuels, beyond 1.5, we may start to see some irreversible impacts on the planet, right? For example, we know that as we cross 1.5 degrees Celsius in warming, about 90% of the world's coral reefs would become bleached. Currently, we are in a major coral bleach event globally. And these are things that we should be very concerned about. The different ways that you all said that you would respond. Some of you all said you'll kick off the blanket, some would turn on the fan. These are all things that we do in the context of climate change, but we use different jargon and terms for it. So for example, when you all said you were going to take off the sheets, when you were going to remove the blankets that warm you up, in the context of climate change, the words that we use is mitigation, right? We talk about greenhouse gas mitigation, the removal of blankets or the avoidance of new blankets. Some of you said you would put on the fan, right? That is you trying to adjust to what your new circumstances. And in climate change jargon, we call that adaptation. And once I asked this question of an audience, and they told, there was a guy who told me that even if he was under, a dozen blankets, he wouldn't sweat at all because he goes to the gym and then he's goes to the sauna and he's built up a tolerance for heat, right? And as jokey as that situation is, he is talking about a concept there called resilience. Resilience means your ability to withstand a shock. So in climate change, even though the analogy of this blanket and this bed overheating and removing bed sheets is good to remember, the jargon that we use is mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. So I'm going to take a little pause there, all right? Just to touch base with you all, to check your temperature, if you will. Are we all on board? Do we understand these three concepts?
Yes.
Yeah, going good. So I've simplified the climate science down to this very, very simple thing for you. It's the addition of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere that traps heat. It causes us to warm up. That is a scientific fact. It's consensus. There's no real debate about that, and that's really trite. It's a very simple process in terms of we know what's causing this heat of the planet, and it's accelerated warming. Now, the planet has been around for a very long time. Its climate has always changed, right? It has gone through long periods of heating and cooling, but never before in its planet's history, before mankind arrived, have we seen the planet warm up as fast as it is doing now. And whilst the planet itself may have gone through periods of heating and cooling, humans weren't around. So this is new for us. People often say, we're trying to address climate change to save the planet. I want to say to you that the planet will be fine. We are trying to address climate change to save us because we have never lived through the types of changes that we are currently driving in the planet.
Ryan?
Yes?
We have one question just asking if you could just quickly explain what adaptation is again, please.
Sure, no problem. So adaptation it's a concept in climate change, which means adjusting, right? How do you adjust to your new reality? That's how I would break it down to, right? So in the case of you being hot in bed, if you could not take off the blankets, you would be adapting by turning on the air conditioner or putting on the fan, right? Or drinking lots of water. Right. In terms of climate change in the real world, when we talk about adaptation, if we know, for example, it's going to, I could use, and you'll see real examples as we go through the slides, but let's say we were going to talk about it going to have more droughts, right? If it is going to have more droughts, a form of adaptation would be like trying to get alternative ways to store water in times of drought. So adaptation is around adjusting to your new circumstance or the challenge. Anything else, Omar?
No, I think that's it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, okay, so let's dive into some more things. Now, Adino is kind enough to tell me about the composition of our audience, and we have people from several countries. So I want to just jump into a little bit of the data and, for your information, so you can kind of see what's happening with us in our region. So every country has observed its own climate trends over the past 30 years since we invented reliable meteorology technology to track things like daily temperatures and rainfall. We have been gathering information for a long time. And what I've highlighted here and I put up here for you is for you all to just sort of see three climate variables: temperature, rainfall, and sea level rise. Those are the three among the three major things that we often discuss when we think about climate change. And I'm not going to go through every line and every box, but what you want to see, for example, is that in the row that talks about temperature, globally since 1950, the planet has been warming up. Right now, it has gone up by 1.2 degrees. And I mentioned before that the magic number is 1.5 degrees, after which we will have serious challenges. And we are getting close to that number. We're at 1.29. We're just several fractions of a degree away from crossing that threshold. In the region, meaning the Caribbean region, that extends from the Bahamas in the north all the way down to Guyana and Suriname, which is still considered part of our Caribbean. Regionally, the temperatures have been going up. It seems very small at 0.1 per decade, but it is adding up. And each of our different islands, Trinidad, Bahamas, Jamaica, Barbados, we all see that increasing trend. It's not an imagination. It is getting warmer. I always say that when I was a child in Trinidad, I used to go outside and play, and I don't know how I used to run around in the sun all the time. Now, when I have to walk outside to go down to the parlor, I feel like I am melting. And at first I thought it's because, I'm 30 years younger, 30 years older. I got older, I got fatter, and like maybe that's why it's hot. But no, it's because over the past 30 years, the temperature in Trinidad has gone up by more than half a degree Celsius, objectively and measured. With rainfall, and this is interesting, you would see that the arrows go up and down. It's variable. And even though the regional trend talks about a decline in rainfall, overall, when you look at the whole region, we are getting less rainfall, less water. But within most countries, what you're getting is an interesting juxtaposition. Even though the volume of water that you're getting is less, it's usually coming down in more intense bursts, right? So, for example, in Trinidad, we have what we call peak one-day rainfall, which is the total amount of rain that comes down in one day. And that volume has increased over time. And ironically, or interestingly, it actually happens in our inverted commas dry season. So the day of the year with the most rain is a single day in the dry season. And the problem that we have with climate change is that you're not getting the same amount you used to get in terms of rainfall over on average. So basically, you're getting less water into your lakes and into your environment, but you get a lot in a short space of time, and that leads to flooding. So these variable arrows are actually quite challenging for most of our countries. And in terms of sea level rise, you also have an increasing trend. Why is the sea level rising? Well, as the planet warms up, the polar and southern ice caps melt. This adds water into the oceans. Water also expands when heated, and these things have been contributing to gradual sea level rise over the past decades here in the region. Now, it seems small in terms of millimeters, but to talk about our colleagues in the Pacific and Indian Islands, their sea level is rising at the rates of feet per decade, not centimeters. So for them, it's a very serious existential threat. You have islands like Tuvalu that are completely underwater and its populations becoming climate refugees. Anyway, so this is just to show you all an overview of trends. This is what we have observed. This is history, it's past. There is also predictions for the future that we've done with several types of models. And again, I want to just highlight some of these climate things that have been projected for the Caribbean region. We know that, for example, with high confidence that there will be increases in average daily temperatures. It will get hotter. It will have more rainfall and flooding. It will have stronger tropical cyclones. We will have a whole host of different types of ways that climate will manifest as the years go by. Now, we're in a really challenging time, and I love being first at things. I love being the best, but I get frustrated. Somebody mentioned being frustrated under the blankets. I do get frustrated when I look at the news because each day, every month, there is a record-breaking first when it comes to heat and different consequences of climate change. Last month, April 2024, was the hottest April in human record ever, since we've been recording temperature. And not only that, last April marked the 11th consecutive warmest month on record. So last April was the warmest April, which came after the warmest March, which came after the warmest February, for 11 straight months. And this is unprecedented in all of our existence, right? It's genuinely getting hotter and record-breakingly hot. One of the things I told you all is that when the Earth sweats manifest in the form of hurricanes. That is how the Earth releases heat. It generates hurricanes and cyclones. And one of the things that happened in October of last year was Hurricane Otis. Hurricane Otis went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in less than 24 hours because it went over a period of abnormally hot ocean water. And that is insane to think that, we have hurricane alerts in the Caribbean. To imagine that you have a tropical storm and in less than a day before an alert could reach to you, you can go to the grocery, do anything. It goes from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane. It is, again, another first. It's an unprecedented type of scenario. But these are the effects of climate change, right? The planet is getting warmer. It's moving its rainfall patterns. It's making bigger hurricanes. But those aren't impacts. What I want us to understand is that impacts occur when these climate hazards or these effects interact with our society and our economies. If humankind didn't exist, we wouldn't call these things impacts, right? Because it's not bothering us. And what I have on this slide is I just want to highlight very quickly images. I like to collect them as I go through life that stand out to me. These are some of the ways that climate impacts affect our Caribbean region. Here we have photos from Trinidad, Suriname, and Guyana. Trinidad 2018, I remember seeing this in the front page of our newspapers. This is an image that I thought, hey, there's a man standing in a river, and it wasn't actually the river. That's the southbound highway in Trinidad. The Kearney River broke its banks because we received the equivalent of a month's worth of rainfall in 48 hours. That intense burst of rainfall came down and it flooded this river that completely dissected the country. It broke transportation routes between north and south. It was a true disaster, and we call that the mother of all floods here in Trinidad. Now, the thing is that, and I'll say on this one point or this one image that Trinidad actually had something called climate risk insurance that we have with an organization called the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. The same way you have car insurance, the government of Trinidad and Tobago took out something called excess rainfall insurance in case we had unusual amounts of rainfall. Obviously, in 2018, we got money from that insurance policy. But I want to say to you that between 2017 and 2023, right, which is 7 consecutive years, we have cashed out on that policy. And at first, it's an anomalous amount of rainfall, but after 7 consecutive years of cashing out, it's actually a pattern. And what is once an anomaly and odd and a once-in-a-lifetime thing is becoming more frequent, in which case, we have to conclude that climate change is not insurable. And even though presently we might be getting insurance to try to help deal with these things, any insurance company, if they have to pay out every year on this, they're going to realize that this is not a good policy to have. Anyway, that was a slight aside, but just to highlight the point that in the past 7 years, we've received about $14 million from the CRIF. in excess rainfall payouts each year. Well, 17 cumulatively, but a payout each year. When we get these types of effects, these losses are felt by individuals, by communities, and all sectors. These are more photos from Trinidad, from St. Lucia, from Dominica. And that photo in Dominica was another personal photo that I take personally, because I have colleagues that work in Dominica. That was a landslide that came down after another bout of extreme rainfall. It removed some roads, and unfortunately, 6 people lost their lives in that landslide. So it's a real thing, and it does seriously disrupt our lives, our communities, and our economies. Of course, I know that is why we have the theme Writing for Our Lives, because the effects are real and it's very real for us. This is my final slide to chat with you all about, and I want to talk about something called intersectionality. Now, this isn't a hard science topic per se. I would consider it more of a social science topic. But as writers, I think it's important for us to know that the climate crisis, it's not a uniform experience for everyone. Apart from the physical effects manifested in different ways in different geographies all around the world, right? We don't all sweat uniformly on our bodies. What I want us to understand is that each of us are a composite of different types of identities, right? From our gender, ethnicity, our class, all of these types of things. And we all, it's written that we all sit at intersections of our identities and different systems of power that shape the way we perceive these impacts on climate change. How climate change affects me as a middle-class male is very different from how it might affect someone who is a migrant to Trinidad and Tobago from Venezuela living on the fringes of society. We need to be very mindful when we think about this relationship between social situations and climate change, that everybody's perception is valid, and that there's a lot of richness and nuance and stories that we could tell about maybe the same thing in the same place, but it happens to different people at different intersections. And that's just something I wanted to present to you all, because it is something that from a climate policy and climate change perspective, in addressing climate change, that we are increasingly taking more seriously in terms of how we design interventions, recognizing that climate change affects everyone in very different ways. So with that, I conclude with a quote from Barack Obama, former US president. And he says, "We are the first generation to feel the effects of climate change, and we are the last generation that can do something about it." That meaning that we are the last generation that can possibly do something to stop us from crossing that 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. It's something that we have to take with seriousness, and it's why I'm so excited to support you all as part of this process for Writing for Our Lives.